This week's first question comes from Thomas N. Thomas asks two questions about the Destiny universe. What other authors and what other stories are being written in there besides My Destiny Split? The other two authors have pretty much fallen off the face of the earth or given up. So Kyle Ahrens is the only other author that still writes in this universe, and his story is called Destiny's Shadow. And to answer your second question, Thomas, how to pronounce Zon's name. Even though it's spelled with an X, it's actually Z-O-N. I took the pronunciation off of xylophone. It seems I'm a very bad author here. I wrote down the person's name that asked this question, and I thought, you know, that's a very valid question, very important, and a good subject to talk about. For the life of me, I can't find her name. Though she did ask, what do you do about writer's block? Which reminds me of a time years ago when Joe Clayton was still alive, and we were chatting back and forth on CompuServe. We chatted 2 or 3 times a week. And she said something very interesting. She could not ever afford to get writer's block because otherwise she would not be able to eat. I thought that was very interesting, and so on one hand, writer's block is something I can see happening. On the other, I kind of agree with Joe that one can't afford to have writer's block. So what I do is when I'm writing a story and all of a sudden it stops and my brain freezes and I can't figure out where to go next, I'll go back to chapter 1, read through it, make little changes. A lot of times it's spelling and grammar, because the first time through, of course, I just write. So I have a lot of mistakes that I have to fix before I send it to the editing team. So the second thing, as I'm writing through, I will stop and go on stop at the chapter that I am stuck on and think, what did I want to say? So I'll write down points that I wanted to bring up in that chapter. And then I can do two things. I can either get in the car and take a drive through the mountains, which lets my mind wander. That's something I do. Other authors have different things they do. So I can do that, or like in a story I was just playing around with, I was actually working on chapter 18, realized I needed a new chapter 15 because I had forgotten all this stuff and said I was going to do this. Started to write chapter 15 and my mind ground to a halt. I personally can't go back and rewrite a chapter and insert it somewhere without rewriting from that point forward. So after a little bit, a few nights in the hot tub where I just relaxed and stared up at the sky, I decided that I would just forget that new chapter 15, leave it as it's written, and go on. I needed 3 points, or 3 little story plots to come out in that chapter, and as soon as my mind was made up of getting rid of that, forgetting that I even had a couple thousand words written, my mind took off, boom. Immediately those plot points that I wanted to put in chapter 15 immediately started unfolding in my mind to be included in chapter 18, and bang, no more story block. So my suggestion, I don't know if you can hear that, but my little dog Lily is over at the gate on the other side of my window here, barking at something. And it's always disquieting because I live in the middle of the desert. So you never know what she's barking at. So I'm going to pause and edit, and we'll see what she's barking at. And I'll be right back to finish my... Well, I didn't see anything. The other night we had some of those javelinas outside our walled fence. The fence around the backyard is 8-foot tall brick, so I didn't see anything, so maybe it was a bird or a roadrunner or something like that. So to finish my thought, every author will be different. Every author will do something else to let their mind free float as they think about things. But for me, I will either cut out that scene and put the information somewhere else, or I will take the long drive through the mountains and let my mind wander. And that usually will let my mind kick back into concentrating on the story. And the last thing I want to do this week is talk about, but I thought I would start including book reviews from different authors that write with gay characters. I did want to start with the first ever book that I had read years ago that had 2 male lead characters, and it was only in the last few paragraphs that it came out that they were gay through that. I'm still searching my library. My library compromises almost 6,000 books just in the science fiction and fantasy. So I remember the story vaguely. I remember the characters. I kind of remember what they were doing, and I think I remember the cover. So I'm having to pull one book out after another. So starting next week, weekly, I will be adding a book review into these, and hopefully, one, it lets you discover new authors, and 2, will revive some of these older works that I've discovered. And that's all I have to say this week. You can follow me on Twitter. I try to at least post something there once a day, at least, sometimes more. And if you would like to know when these videos are put online, of course you can subscribe, but down below. And I hope you enjoy your week.